The ship shuddered as it pierced through the thin atmosphere, its engines groaning under the strain. Dust and sand swirled around the landing zone, the pale sun casting long, jagged shadows across the barren landscape. Alara, captain of the Zetheri elite, stepped carefully onto the ground, her boots crunching against the rocky soil. She had traveled across star systems countless times, but something about this planet felt different, harsh, unforgiving, and strangely alive. Her eyes scanned the horizon. That was when she saw him. A human. A small, fragile-looking figure, carrying nothing but a worn pack on his back. Alara couldn't hide her amusement. The Zetheri had heard stories of humans, of course stories of weak creatures with short lifespans and fragile bones. Yet, here he was, walking calmly across a world she would barely survive for an hour without protection. She tilted her head, her sharp eyes narrowing. "This is the human?" she whispered to herself. Her companions nearby noticed her gaze and turned. "Curious." "Yes," one of them said, his voice carrying a mixture of disbelief and mockery. "And you expect him to survive?" Alara smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. She loved a challenge, and this human, so small and seemingly insignificant, presented one she could not ignore. She approached him, her movements graceful, every step deliberate. Her fingers twitched with anticipation, her mind already crafting words that would humiliate him. Show him exactly what the Zetheri thought of humans. The human paused, his head tilting slightly as if sensing her presence. But he did not bow, did not flinch, did not even glance directly at her. He simply continued walking, his steps steady and unhurried. That only fueled Alara's amusement. How dare this fragile creature not even acknowledge her presence? It was almost insulting, and she felt a spark of excitement. "Earthborn," she called, her voice cutting across the dry wind. "Is that what they call you? Tell me, how did you survive the void alone? Did you not fear for your life?" The human looked at her then, finally. His eyes were calm, dark, and unwavering. "I survive because I must," he said softly, almost a whisper, yet every word carried weight. Alara blinked in surprise. He did not sound afraid. He did not tremble. Instead, there was something in his voice, certainty, confidence, and a strange serenity that unsettled her. Her companions laughed, their mocking voices echoing across the rocky plains. Alara joined in, louder than the others, projecting authority and superiority. "Look at him," she said. "He is so small, so weak. He can barely carry that pack. What hope does he have against this world?" But the human did not react. He did not even flinch. Alara felt a flicker of frustration. She was used to creatures bowing before her, creatures trembling at her presence. Yet here was a human, indifferent, unshaken, and still moving forward. That arrogance, or whatever it was, made her pulse quicken. She felt a thrill unlike anything she had experienced. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, Alara could not look away. She studied the human, noting every movement, every subtle shift in posture. He walked as if the world belonged to him, even though it was clear it did not. Something about the way he carried himself, with quiet determination and steady focus, made her chest tighten in a mix of curiosity and challenge. Her companions continued to whisper, questioning why she was so focused on this single human. But Alara ignored them. She had learned long ago to trust her instincts. And her instincts told her that this human, so small, so fragile, so seemingly weak, was unlike any other creature she had ever encountered. For the first time in her long career, she felt a flicker of doubt, a shiver of uncertainty. The human was a mystery, a puzzle she did not yet understand. But she also felt excitement, a spark of anticipation. She would test him. She would see what he was capable of. And whether he survived or failed, she would enjoy every moment of it, because Alara knew one thing for certain: she had never faced anyone like him before. And that terrified her, and thrilled her, all at once. Alara circled the human like a predator sizing up its prey. Every step she took was deliberate, a silent assertion of dominance. The wind blew sand into her eyes, but she barely noticed. It was him, the human, who held her attention. He had stopped briefly to adjust his pack, a simple action that seemed almost heroic in his calmness. Alara's lips curved into a smirk. She could already feel the amusement rising inside her, a burning desire to see this fragile creature stumble. "You walk as if this world belongs to you," she said, her voice sharp and dripping with mockery. "Tell me, human, how long did it take for you to learn to survive alone? Did anyone even teach you, or did you simply stumble from one lucky mistake to another?" The human looked up at her slowly. His face was calm, almost serene, and his eyes, darkened, unyielding, met hers without a trace of fear. "I survive because I must," he said, his voice quiet but firm. Alara felt her smirk falter for a brief moment. How could someone so small and seemingly weak speak with such certainty? But she quickly pushed the thought aside. It was arrogance, she decided. Only arrogance could make a creature so fragile stand so tall without trembling. "You survive because you must?" she repeated, her voice rising slightly. "Is that all you have to say?" The human nodded, his expression unchanging. "That is enough." Her companions nearby laughed, their voices high-pitched and mocking. "Look at him," one said. "He can barely lift that pack. And he thinks he is fearless?" Alara joined in, louder than the rest. "Yes, he thinks he is strong," she said, her tone sharp, cutting through the dry air. "It is laughable. A creature so small, so delicate, imagining he can withstand what we endure." But the human did not respond. He did not argue, did not flinch, did not even glance at the laughter surrounding him. Alara felt a strange sensation, something she had never felt before. Frustration mingled with curiosity. How could a being so tiny, so seemingly insignificant, radiate such calm and confidence? She felt a thrill in her chest, a sharp edge of excitement that made her want to push him further, to see how far he could go before he faltered. "Tell me, human," she said, stepping closer. "Did you even train for this, or were you born lucky?" The human's gaze did not waver. "I am trained," he said simply. "Not for luck, but for survival. I endure because it is necessary, not because I am lucky." Alara blinked. Trained? Survival? The words barely registered at first, but slowly they sank in. She had expected weakness, hesitation, fear. Instead, she found precision, focus, and strength. A strange sense of unease crept over her, but she ignored it, forcing herself to laugh instead. "You speak as if you are equal to us," she said, her tone sharp and accusing. "Do you really believe you can stand among the Zathari and survive?" The human did not answer with words. Instead, he straightened, lifted his pack with ease, and continued walking. Each step was steady, deliberate, as if he knew exactly where he was going and what he needed to do to survive. Alara felt her chest tighten. She could not explain it. This human, so small, so fragile, moved with a confidence that made her heart race with something between admiration and irritation. The wind howled around them, whipping sand into the air, but the human remained unaffected. His calm, steady pace contrasted sharply with the restless energy of her crew. Alara realized with a sinking feeling in her stomach that this human was not afraid. He had no fear, no hesitation. Every motion was deliberate, every glance measured. He was unshakable. Alara's pride flared. She could not allow herself to admit it, but something inside her was shifting. This human, whom she had intended to humiliate and mock, was proving to be extraordinary. And that thought made her pulse quicken, a mixture of irritation and curiosity burning in her chest. She decided, then and there, to test him further. She would see if this calm, confident human was as fragile as he appeared, or if there was something more hiding beneath the surface. She would push him, provoke him, and perhaps, just perhaps, she would finally understand what made this creature different from all others she had encountered. Because Alara knew one truth above all. She had never met a human like him before, and she sensed, deep in her bones, that this encounter would change everything. The day after Alara's mockery, the terrain shifted into jagged cliffs and narrow ridges, a dangerous path that would challenge even the most experienced Zathari. Alara observed the human from a distance, curiosity and doubt warring inside her. She had expected hesitation, faltering steps, perhaps even fear, but Jaran, the human, moved with calm precision. Every step he took seemed calculated, his balance perfect as he navigated the uneven ground. Alara's eyes narrowed. "This is impossible," she muttered to herself. He was supposed to struggle, to stumble, to show that humans were weak. And yet, here he was, moving as though the cliffs were built for him. The wind howled around him, threatening to knock him off balance, but he adjusted instantly, planting his feet carefully, using the rocks as leverage. It was not luck, it was skill. Pure skill. A loose stone crumbled beneath his foot, sending it sliding toward the edge of a small crevice. Alara held her breath. She had seen countless creatures fall in similar situations, but Jaran twisted his body, shifted his weight, and landed safely on a narrow ledge. He didn't even look back. His eyes remained forward, focused, unbroken. One of her companions whispered, "He is lucky." Nothing more. Alara's gaze sharpened. Luck would not save him from what is coming, she said quietly. Inside, a strange feeling grew, a mixture of admiration and unease. He was small, fragile in appearance, yet there was a strength in him that defied every assumption she had made. The test came sooner than expected. A massive rockslide thundered down the cliffside, triggered by their movements. Allura's companions froze, panic flashing across their faces. The rocks fell fast, jagged and unyielding, a deadly storm that would crush anything in its path. Allura's heart pounded as she realized most of her team would not survive if they stayed still. Without hesitation, Jaren sprinted forward. His small frame moved with astonishing speed and agility, weaving between falling rocks. He reached the nearest crew member just in time, grabbing their arm and pulling them to safety. Another rock tumbled dangerously close to another companion, and Jaren was there again, steadying them, guiding them to solid ground. Allura watched in stunned silence. He was saving her lives without fear, without hesitation, without losing his calm. When the last rock settled, silence fell over the cliff. Dust and debris hung in the air, but everyone was alive. Allura felt a strange mix of anger and awe. She had come to mock this human, to prove her superiority, yet here he was, outperforming even the most skilled Zathari. She approached him, her chest tight. How did you do that?" she demanded, though she barely recognized the tremor in her voice. Jaren looked at her calmly, his dark eyes steady. "I survive because I must," he repeated, almost as if it were a mantra. "Every action matters. Every choice can save a life or end it. I act with purpose, not pride." Allura's mind raced. Purpose, skill, precision. This was no ordinary human. This was someone different. Her laughter, her mockery from the day before, echoed hollowly in her mind. She had assumed weakness, frailty, even foolishness. And yet, she had been wrong. Utterly wrong. A seed of respect, small but insistent, began to grow within her. She realized that this human, whom she had thought fragile and laughable, possessed qualities that many Zathari lacked: calm in chaos, clarity in danger, and courage without ego. It was a combination that was rare, almost legendary. Allura swallowed hard, her pride warring with the truth she could no longer deny. The human Jaren was not just surviving. He was excelling. He was proving every assumption she had about humans to be false, and doing it with quiet, unshakable confidence. The wind howled around them, carrying dust and sand across the cliffside. Allura looked at him, really looked, for the first time. There was something in his eyes, a quiet strength, a resolve that made her chest ache in ways she had not expected. She felt a strange pull, a combination of fear, admiration, and curiosity. Perhaps I judged too quickly," she whispered, almost to herself. Jaren, unaware of the turmoil he stirred, adjusted his pack and began moving forward again. His pace was steady, calm, almost serene. Allura's gaze followed him, and she realized that this was only the beginning. The test was not over. His skills, his calm, his resilience, they were all a challenge she had never faced before, and deep down, Allura felt a spark of excitement. She would push him further. She would test him again. And this time she would watch closely, because she knew that the outcome, whatever it was, would change everything. She thought she knew about humans. The cliffside dust had barely settled when Allura found herself standing beside her commander, the Zathari who had sent her on this mission. Their team was safe, miraculously unharmed, thanks entirely to the human's quick thinking and calm precision. Allura felt a strange mix of pride and irritation. Pride that her team survived. Irritation that a human, a creature she had considered weak, had been the one to save them all. "Who is this human?" the commander demanded, his voice sharp and commanding. His dark eyes fixed on Jaren, who was quietly adjusting his pack, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. "Where does he come from?" "Explain yourself, Allura." Allura hesitated, the words catching in her throat. She had no simple explanation. She had expected weakness, a trembling creature she could mock, maybe even intimidate. Instead, she had found someone who moved with a confidence, a focus, and a skill that rivaled the finest warriors of the Zathari fleet. He is from Earth," she said finally, her voice low. "But not ordinary Earthborn. I do not know exactly, but he is." She paused, struggling for words. "Different, stronger, smarter, calm under pressure." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Earthborn? Don't tell me the legends are true. He is." Before he could finish, Jaren spoke, his voice calm and steady. "I am Earthborn Elite," he said simply, as if stating his name rather than a title. Allura froze. Her chest tightened. Earthborn elite. The words carried weight, history, and power. She had heard whispers of their existence, humans trained to endure the impossible, to survive in environments that would destroy the strongest warriors, to adapt and overcome without hesitation. They were rare, almost mythical. And now, one stood before her. The commander took a step back, disbelief etched across his face. This cannot be. Earthborn elite are legends, stories told to frighten young Zathari. They cannot exist. Not in our time. Jaren's gaze remained calm, unwavering. I exist, he said simply. And I survive because I am trained to endure what others cannot. That is my purpose, and it is enough. Alara felt her knees go weak. All the mockery, all the laughter, all the doubt she had poured onto him, it was suddenly hollow. She had insulted someone whose abilities surpassed nearly every Zathari she had ever known. Her mind raced, remembering every moment of the cliffs, every precise movement, every life he had saved. She had been wrong in every assumption. Her fingers curled into fists at her sides, not in anger toward him, but at herself. How could she have been so blind? How could she have underestimated a human? She had seen them as fragile, weak, and incapable. And yet, this one human, small, quiet, unassuming, was extraordinary. The wind blew across the cliffside, carrying dust and sand, but Alara barely noticed. Her thoughts were consumed with the realization that everything she had believed about humans, about weakness and strength, had been shattered. She felt a strange ache, a mixture of shame, awe, and something else, something she did not yet understand. Her gaze met Jaren's, and for the first time, she looked beyond his physical form. She saw the discipline in his movements, the clarity in his eyes, the quiet confidence that no force in the universe could shake. This human was more than a survivor. He was a master of endurance, strategy, and calm. He was, in every way, superior to the expectations she had held. Alara, the commander said, his voice shaking slightly, "What have you brought us?" Alara's eyes softened as she looked at Jaren. Something we do not yet understand, she admitted. Something we should respect, not mock. Jaren inclined his head slightly, not with arrogance, but with quiet acknowledgement. Respect is earned through understanding, he said. And understanding comes from observation, patience, and willingness to adapt. Nothing more. Alara's chest tightened with emotion. She felt humility for the first time in her life, the weight of her previous arrogance settling heavily on her shoulders. She had mocked him, doubted him, and yet he had proven himself without boast or pride. He had done what she could not, what most could not. With quiet efficiency and unwavering calm, she realized then, in that harsh, dusty landscape, that she had been given a lesson, one that she would never forget. Humans were not weak. They were not fragile. They were capable of greatness that could rival, even surpass, the finest warriors of the Zathari, and in that moment, Alara knew that the mission ahead would not just test their survival, it would test her understanding, her pride, and her ability to see strength where she had once seen only weakness. The human turned and continued forward, his steps steady and assured. Alara watched him go, her heart heavy with awe and humility. She had thought she knew everything about strength. She had been wrong, and now she would never underestimate a human again. That night, the campfire crackled and danced, throwing long shadows across the jagged rocks. The Zathari crew rested nearby, exhausted from the day's trials, but Alara could not sleep. She sat apart from the others, her eyes fixed on Jaren as he adjusted his pack by the firelight. His movements were quiet, deliberate, every action calm and precise. Alara's chest ached in a way she didn't expect, part frustration, part admiration, and part guilt. She had mocked him, humiliated him, and yet here he was, unaffected, unshaken, almost serene. Every step he took, every breath he drew, reminded her of her own arrogance and ignorance. She had thought humans fragile, weak, incapable of facing the dangers of the galaxy. She had been wrong. Utterly wrong. Finally, unable to contain herself, she rose and approached him. Her footsteps crunched against the rocks, loud in the still night. Jaren looked up, meeting her gaze, calm and unafraid. For a moment, Alara's mouth went dry. How could someone so small hold such presence? How could she feel both awe and fear at the same time? You are Earthborn elite, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Is that true? Jaren inclined his head, eyes steady. Yes, he said simply. And I do not boast. My purpose is to survive and endure. That is enough. Alara swallowed hard, her pride warring with the truth she could no longer deny. Every instinct in her wanted to scold him, to assert dominance as she always did. But another part of her, the part she had ignored for too long, was fascinated. This human had faced danger and chaos, yet he remained calm, collected and unbroken. He had saved lives that day on the cliffs, her lives, without hesitation or ego. "I mocked you," she admitted, her voice soft now, almost a whisper. "I laughed at you because I thought you were weak. I thought you were fragile. I was wrong. I judged you without understanding you." Jaren's expression remained calm, almost unreadable. "Many judge without understanding," he said. "Strength is often underestimated until it is seen in action. It is natural. You are not the first to err, and you will not be the last." Alara's chest tightened. His words were not arrogance, they were truth. They carried no malice, only clarity. She realized she had never encountered someone so confident, so aware, yet so humble. The human before her was not just strong in body. He was strong in mind, in heart, and in spirit. She took a step closer, her hands clenching at her sides. How can you be so calm? So certain? I have faced countless threats, yet you remain unshaken, always precise, always in control. I do not understand it." Jaren looked at her, his dark eyes steady and unwavering. "I do not act for pride or fear. I act because it is necessary. Each choice matters. Each step matters. Calm comes from understanding what must be done, and courage comes from choosing to act even when the outcome is uncertain." Alara felt tears prick the corners of her eyes, though she quickly blinked them away. His words resonated deeply, more than she could explain. He had endured danger she could scarcely imagine, yet he spoke with simplicity, without bragging, without seeking validation. And in that moment, she understood something she had never admitted to herself. She had underestimated humans because she had never truly seen their strength. "Not this kind of strength. I judged you too quickly," she whispered again, her voice softer now. "I mocked what I did not understand, but you have shown me what it means to be strong, to endure, to survive without arrogance. I am grateful." Jaren's lips curved into a faint smile, not proud, not condescending, just acknowledging. "Understanding is the first step," he said. "Respect follows from observation. And those who survive must choose both." Alara nodded slowly, her heart heavy with humility. For the first time in her life, she felt the sting of regret and the glow of admiration at the same time. This human, small in size but vast in strength, had changed her perception of the universe. He had not only proven his abilities, but had also taught her a lesson in humility, courage, and patience. The fire crackled, sending sparks into the night sky. Alara looked at Jaren, her eyes reflecting both awe and something new hope. She realized that together, they could face challenges she had never imagined. He was not just a human. He was a guide, a teacher, a reminder that strength came in forms she had never recognized before. And for the first time, Alara did not feel the need to assert her dominance. Instead, she felt something she had long forgotten: respect. Genuine and deep. For the being who had quietly, unassumingly, changed everything she thought she knew, she whispered softly, almost to herself, "I will not underestimate you again." Jaren simply nodded, as if he had expected no less. And in that quiet night, with stars burning above and firelight dancing between them, an unspoken understanding passed between them, a bond forged not by words, but by courage, respect, and the recognition of true strength. The next morning, the sun rose over the jagged horizon, painting the rocky plains with shades of gold and crimson. Alara woke with a new determination in her chest. She had mocked Jaren, doubted him, and now after witnessing his skill, calm, and courage, she knew she had much to learn. The day's mission would test not just their survival, but her ability to adapt and follow someone she had once thought beneath her dot. She found him near the edge of a cliff, studying a map of the terrain. His movements were precise, his posture calm. Alara approached cautiously, feeling a mix of admiration and nervousness. "Show me," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "Show me how you navigate this world, how you survive where we fail." Jaren looked up at her, calm eyes meeting hers. "Observation first," he said. "Every environment has rules. Every danger has signs. You must see before you act." Alara nodded, trying to push aside her pride. She had spent her life leading, giving orders, always assuming she knew best. But Jaren's quiet confidence made her question everything. For the first time, she felt the humbling weight of learning from someone she had once considered weak. They moved together across the rocky terrain, Jaren pointing out subtle dangers, loose rocks hidden beneath sand, faint cracks in cliffs that could give way, areas where sudden storms might strike. He showed her how to move with patience, to use her body and mind in harmony with the environment, rather than forcing brute strength against it. Every tip, every movement was a lesson. Alara struggled at first. Her muscles ached, her mind resisted the unfamiliar discipline, but she persisted. With each careful step, each observation, she began to see the difference between rushing blindly and moving with calculated awareness. Slowly, she started to understand why Jaren had survived where others might have fallen. It was not luck, it was focus, preparation, and the calm courage to face danger without fear. As the day wore on, a storm rolled in. Dark clouds twisted over the horizon, lightning cracking across the sky. The winds howled, threatening to knock them off their path. Her companions panicked, calling for orders, unsure where to move. Alara froze for a moment, but Jaren's calm presence guided her. Breathe, observe, move carefully. Each step matters, he said, his voice steady against the roar of the storm. Following him, she found safety in narrow ledges, natural rock shelters, and hidden paths she would never have noticed on her own. Jaren moved with certainty, each decision deliberate, each action precise. Alara began to mirror him, her confidence growing with every correct choice. She realized that she was no longer just watching him, she was learning from him. Adapting and improving. By the time they reached a plateau overlooking the valley, the storm had passed, leaving the world glistening and washed in silver light. Alara stood beside him, breathless but exhilarated. For the first time, she felt what it truly meant to survive, not through pride, not through arrogance, but through discipline, observation, and quiet courage. She turned to Jaren, her eyes reflecting a mixture of awe and gratitude. You've changed everything I thought I knew, she admitted. Not just about humans, but about strength, patience, and survival. She paused, taking a deep breath. I want to fight beside you, not against you. Jaren inclined his head slightly, a faint smile on his face. Then observe, learn, and act, he said. Survival is not about proving superiority. It is about understanding and adapting. That is how we endure. Alara felt warmth in her chest, a sense of camaraderie she had never known. For the first time, she was not the leader giving orders, she was part of a team, learning from someone she had once thought weak. Her respect for Jaren grew with every word, every action, every lesson. She realized that humans were not defined by size or strength alone, but by the heart, mind, and courage to endure the impossible. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the valley, Alara and Jaren prepared to move forward together. The team followed, guided not just by her experience but by the calm, steady leadership of the human who had once been her target of mockery. She had learned humility, patience, and the true meaning of strength. And in that quiet moment, as the wind whispered across the cliffs, Alara understood the unspoken truth. Strength was not about dominance or arrogance, it was about courage, resilience, and the willingness to learn. Together, they would face the challenges ahead, not as master and subordinate, but as allies, partners, and equals. And Alara knew that she would never see a human or any being the same way again.